Assalamualaikum and hi to my students. Welcome to another video lecture. This time it is about contradiction method. Contradiction method is quite an alternative method, I can say. This method is an orthodox method. We start first with the direct. If the direct fails, go to indirect. If indirect also fail, then use contradiction method. Some mathematicians really they don't like to use the contradiction method. But the idea is like this. Suppose you want to prove that the implication is true. This is a direct method way. And if direct method fails, we divert into not Q implies not P of modus tollens. This is indirect. But the thinking of contradiction method is trying to show otherwise happen, which you can put in terms of P implies not Q. This is contradiction. The idea is like this. You imagine there's someone who always like to contradict every statement. Let's start with this example. I want to prove if n is even, then I believe the implication that n plus 6 is even, right? But you think like there is a stubborn student, they trying to contradict this statement. So instead of they trying to show by using the direct way, if n is even, then n plus 6 is even. But the student said to me, no sir, it will be like this. Actually, if n is even, it will not be even, it will be odd. They believe that. The stubborn student believe that. So like a normal way, student, they will try to prove that n equals to 2k, and you do n plus 6, it will be 2k plus 6. What is n plus 6? It can be factorized into 2k plus 3. Then k plus 3, it will be just another integer. Therefore, this stubborn student actually contradicts himself. Where is the contradiction part? Is this. Contradict with this part. See? He believed that n plus 6 is odd, but the outcome is actually even. This is the contradiction part. So what I want to highlight here is actually this student just managed to show a contradicting proof. The conclusion should initially things like this. If n is even, proven, if n is even, then n plus 6 is not odd. Therefore, the previous initial assumption is that the stubborn student will actually contradict himself, and at the end accept the truth is that proven if n is even, then n plus 6, he should accept it, n plus 6 is even. Some of you at this point might trying to think, what is the difference with direct method in this case? The proof is the same with direct method. The difference lies in terms of your thinking, the thought process. As the direct method, like the normal student try to accept this is true, the contradiction method trying to prove it false, but at the end it will contradict with the original statement, therefore it is true. The difference is just in terms of the philosophy and the way of thinking. That's why I normally will not suggest for my student to use this method. If you because it is a little bit confusing. Direct method is much more direct. If you try to do this, so you just like a that stubborn student. Okay, trying to do this one more example for the contradiction method. And right now, try to be a stubborn student first. Show that, okay, the first one, I need to prove or show sama, show of if n is an integer, okay, blah blah blah. So I rewrite it back, is n squared plus 5 is odd, then n is even. Okay, right now the contradiction statement is that I want to show that if n squared plus 5 is odd, then actually the n is not even, the n will be odd. This is the alteration part. Some of you might realize here we cannot prove this statement directly. I need to change it again into indirect method. Instead of showing this, I need to show that if n is even, then n squared plus 5 is even. Hence the second alteration. Do the normal proof. I let n equals to 2k. K is an integer. N squared plus 5 4k squared plus 5. Then I proceed with 2k squared. Okay, I don't want to skip this line, because some student, okay, 4k squared plus 4 plus 1, then becomes 2k squared plus 2 plus 1, then becomes 2l plus 1. Okay, finish. L equals to 2k squared plus 2. Alright, what happens right now, I just prove that if n is even, this part, then n squared plus 5 will be odd. It contradicts with this part, this one and this part. As the contradiction happens here, therefore we need to accept that actually, okay, I show this step by step first. Contradict. Actually, if n is even, n squared plus 5 is odd. Logically equivalent, it will show that if n squared plus 5 is odd, then n is not odd. Comes the grand conclusion. I just proven that if n squared plus 5 is odd, then the n cannot be odd. Therefore, n will be even. The original assumption is true. The difference is just on how you think and how you present. You try to contradict, but at the end, we accept that the original statement is actually true. A different representation. I think this concludes this example. And before I sum up this lecture, you must try to learn every different way of proving. We have direct, indirect, and contradiction method. All of them are different in terms of the way of proving. The thinking process is different. You must aware for all of it, and you must master so much the direct method. You can ignore, in this example, I found there is some which is related with the modular arithmetic part. For example, this one, by using contradiction method, show that if n is an odd integer, prove that n squared is apa ni? If n is odd, then n squared is congruent to 1 mod 8. Some example in this one is much harder than it seems. Therefore, I can say you can ignore first the question which involve the modular. Okay, trying to avoid those first, because the proof is much more longer than what my colleague intended. Focus on the odd and even first. Then in the next video lecture, I will focus the direct method as implied to number theory, set function and relation, and of course abstract algebra. Abstract algebra part, I will focus on directly to abstract algebra video. Okay, till we meet again in another video lecture. Thank you so much and see you again. Bye bye.